Hi, Mehul. Thank you for coming to this interview. My question to you is a product sense question. How would you improve Zomato for business lunches?
Sure. Sounds good. So I'll just take a moment to think about the entire context and maybe just come up with a few clarifying questions before we start. I hope that's okay.
Sure.
Cool.
Asking clarifying questions is always the right step. You can never proceed a product sense question without asking the clarifying questions. Let's see the type of questions that Mehul is able to ask, and then we'll talk about some feedback.
All right. So I have thought about it and I have come up with a few clarifying questions around this question, right? So when we say Zomato for business lunches, so do we mean lunches that will be provided by the company to their employees, or do we mean employees ordering for themselves, or do we mean lunches that will be ordered by employees but then reimbursed by businesses? So, like, do we have something specific that we want to solve, or are we solving for all these cases?
Let's focus on company hosted lunches.
Got it. So right now we are only focusing on company hosted lunches, which is basically the entire company sponsoring the lunch for their employees,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And we are not only talking about a specific team, but the entire
yeah,
company as such.
yeah.
Got it, understood. And so are we trying to mention the lunches that happen occasionally, or do we mean to have, or do we mean to mention the lunches that happen every day at the office here?
It's your call. We can pick a particular employee group and take it from there.
Got it. So what I've seen in my context and in general is offices have their own cafes. Decent sized companies have their own cafes and own kitchens. So a company to sponsor lunch every day doesn't really seem very feasible. So I'm going to take into consideration a situation where these are occasional lunches where a company wants to sponsor a lunch for an employee for celebrating something. I hope that's cool.
Sure, that's fine.
All right, cool. So Zomato has multiple, under the Zomato umbrella, there are multiple products that come in, right? There is a dine out feature. There is where people can just go out and have lunches, and there is a food ordering feature as well, right? So are we trying to take into consideration both the cases where we are also catering to lunches outside, or are we catering to only lunch that are ordered to the office?
Completely your call.
Got it. I'll think about it. What do we choose, and then I'll come back with the answer to this.
Sure.
I have few more questions I want to ask. So, yeah, I think so. What is the goal that we're trying to achieve here? Is it the goal? Is the goal only that we want to make it easy for teams to order lunch, or do we have more goals that we want to accomplish as a company? Maybe business goals, or maybe any
See,
other.
Zomato's vision is good food for everyone, which is what we want to do. And we want to enable that for employees of different businesses as well.
Understood. Got it. Sounds good. So we'll take it from here. I'll just think about what do we really need to solve for? Do we want to solve for dining out outside, or do we want to solve for the food delivery part of it, right?
Sure. Now, asking these questions was a very smart move, especially the one where he asked me if this is for company hosted lunches or is it for daily lunches, because that question helps him narrow down the scope. So now instead of focusing on the entire universe of business lunches, what is happening is he's only working on a very specific niche. Now, there is one small thing that he missed out and could have been used to narrow the scope down even further. If he had focused on the persona of who this lunch is for, is it for CXOs, is it for directors, is it for sales, is it for delivery partners, then his direction could have been even more narrower, and he would have had more ideas of finding some nice personas to solve for. But great attempt nonetheless. Let's see what he's got after this.
Sure. So comparing both the cases, right? Either dining out or getting delivered, food getting delivered at office. Here, a more solvable side seems to be the deliver side. A lot of people have not solved it yet. Dining out is a fairly solved problem as of now. Apps like Dine Out and District and etc. have options to just book a table and then go and attend, go and have lunch, right? So that experience is really solved at this point. But what is not solved is the when you want to order something in the office, right? So that experience is not completely catered to as of now. So I
Mhm.
see opportunity being opportunity over here. So I would like to solve this for today.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. I'll just take some time to understand the personas of users that would come across when you want to like solve for team lunches, and then move forward with choosing a specific persona. So yeah, I'll just take a moment to think about it.
Sure. Now, once again, see how he's narrowing down the scope. He's actually eliminated dine out, he's actually eliminated eating out, going outside office, and everything, and he's focusing only on delivery. What this does is it gives him an edge over someone else who is going in a very generic manner and focusing on multiple things together. Now, there isn't a lot of scope for him to get it wrong because his persona is already going to focus on people who need delivery, and then it will give him better pain points which he'll be able to solve for. So far, so good.
All right. So coming to the user personas of this problem statement, right? So if you look at ordering lunches for a team lunch, there are two ways it can happen. Either a team leader is going to order for their team, or the admin would order for the entire company or civic team, right?
Mhm.
There are two people that I can see using this feature. But the another persona here is obviously the person who's a team member, right? Who's going to have the food. So a lot of times what happens is admins would just order something for everybody and then they would just have, but that's not the preference of a member maybe, right? So sometimes creates conflicts. Sometimes people are not interested to have that food because they didn't like it or something. So let's just try to focus on one persona here and then try to solve for them. Over here, what I can see is a team leader's and an admin's role is very similar. He's going to order the food. So let's generalize it and put it as the um, order coordinator, let's call
Mhm.
that, right? So because he's the one who's going to coordinate the order and probably pay for it, and then eventually it will get reimbursed by the company or etc., right? So let's call it the order coordinator. So over here, what I see is order coordinator is going to um, be a person probably in the leadership who is going to talk to their members, talk to their team members, and then understand what do they want to have and take their preference, right? So this seems like a very interesting problem to solve, and I'll go deeper into it, and I'll just take some time to understand the pain points that exist in both the sides, right, and see what is worth solving here.
Perfect. Now, he did a good job with coming up with a persona, but there is something that he missed out. Now, what's that? When you're talking about personas, a big mistake that you can do is only give me one persona. This makes me feel like you're slightly narrow visioned. The best way to do it is to first mention all the stakeholders. So the admin can be a stakeholder, the person consuming the food is another stakeholder, the team lead is another stakeholder, the finance team, the person delivering it, the caterer. Once you mention the entire set of stakeholders, and then you pick one of them to say that this is the one I'm going to choose because of the reasons he gave, it gives me a much clearer picture of why. Remember, you're not getting hired to solve the business lunch problem for Zomato. You're getting hired for your ability to break down any problem and solve it, which is why giving the breadth to the interviewer is important. Let's see what he does with the pain points.
Okay, so now that we have narrowed down into the user persona,
Mhm.
let's try to understand the journey of how does a team coordinator order lunch for his team, right? So what are the steps that go into this entire flow? So first of all is obviously initiating the conversation that let's do a team lunch. That's the
Mhm.
first step that happens. And then second step is understanding the food choices of everybody, right? Everybody might have a separate food choice and they would want to order what's best for most of the people. In ideal case, everybody. After this, what's there is once you get the preferences of everybody, you would go ahead and place an order which is going to be the best for everybody, most of the people,
Mhm.
and then you place the order, you make the payment, and that's the flow that you have that comes in between. initiating the conversation to placing the order, right? There's an flow after this, which is once you place the order, the restaurant will receive the order, and then they'll cook food, and then it'll get delivered. So that experience is not something that we are right now catering to, because that's going to be very similar to an individual ordering food. Probably the delivery vehicle would be a little different, but that experience is already solved. Right now, what we're focusing on, where the pain point lies, is the pre-order placed experience here. And after post delivered phase also, there is no much experience that we could change, because once the food arrives at the office, people would just unpack it and start having food.
Mhm.
So I see the gap here, mostly around the first step of the flow, which is from initiating the conversation to placing the final order. So here, when we look at the entire flow, from initiating the conversation to choosing food choices, right? So here, right now, it just happens verbally. The team leader would just come to the table and ask, going to I'm going to do a team lunch today, and what do you want to have?
Mhm.
And so maybe this could a lot of times what happens is team leaders are generally involved in maybe a high stake meeting, or they're busy with a meeting and they can't really have this conversation immediately, so this might delay the lunch. So over here, what I can see a pain point is, can we do this asynchronously of sharing a link or something, or just
Mhm.
intimating people that okay, don't have their lunch today, we'll have a lunch together and we'll order from something from outside. So that's something that we could think about. This is the pain point that we think that exists. After that, if you look at from the step of initiating the conversation to choosing food choice, right? So right now it just happens verbally, or maybe somebody just put it on the WhatsApp group. What do you want to have? So generally, what happens is a lot of people might have different restaurant choices and different menu choices, right? This
Mhm.
is a two-way matrix that you have to solve. Like people might have different choices in different restaurants, and people might have different choices in the same restaurant as well. So how do you really come to a common ground of where do you want to order from? So there are two ways you can do it. Obviously, one is you order from multiple restaurants, but we can't cater to everybody ordering from a different restaurant, because that will be a very massive messy task to do for the leader as well. So can we figure out a way to meet the common ground for the team leader, to coordinate easily and also satisfy the consumer as well, right? So what I can see is we can um, so Zomato has this preference saved inside the um, in the order history, right? So they could just take up that data and maybe use that. We'll come to solutioning later, but I'm just trying to
Mhm.
and put out the problems that exist, right? So here, that's the second step that there is, taking the food choices. And once you take the food choices, now you place the order. Placing the order would be a very similar experience. Once you place the order, you just choose the payment method. Once you select whatever items you want, you select the payment method and then you check out, right? So here, because it's a team lunch, maybe a food coupon or a company credit card might be just maybe a one-time use credit card could be built around something like that, where you can just use a tokenized method of paying for the lunch or something. And yeah, I mean, these are the three problems that we can see in the entire flow that can be solved right now. So I'll come to the solutioning part of it. Do you think all this makes sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think there are a few good points that you've made. Definitely, we could see a lot of requirements in terms of the entire journey of someone figuring out what to order, why to order, and so on. Maybe you could have looked at it from another perspective. So, for example, we've gone from the team lead's perspective, and that's why the operational stuff of doing this has kind of taken the forefront. If we had taken the other side, which is the person who's eating, maybe the taste, food, and the metrics that you talked about would
Hmm.
have taken the forefront. But it's
Understood.
okay. Go ahead.
Got it. Sounds good. All right. So coming to the solutioning part of it, right?
Hmm.
So the first problem statement that we identified was how do you initiate the conversation of you want to order a team lunch, right? So we could build something very similar, which where right now what Swiggy or Zomato does is they have links to just create a common group
Mm-hmm.
inside of Zomato, where you can just group order something, right?
Yeah.
So you can just share this link. People in your team would just join that link, and they would basically build a common cart. And now, what um, to solve the problem of food choices, right? So obviously everybody would give a preference, but for a team leader to make it a little less messy for him, right? What we would ideally do is try to figure out common likes and dislikes of the group members here, right? So Zomato obviously has data of what you have ordered and how have you rated it, right? So maybe your algorithm could just quickly match what are the most common food items everybody's ordered and they've liked a lot, right?
Mhm.
So maybe just suggest the team leader that these are top choices that your team members have. Do you want to just place the order right away? So that could be one solution that we have come up with. Another solution obviously would be user, the member would just suggest something what they want to order, and to make sure that it is being ordered from the same restaurant, a team leader would choose a restaurant they want to order from, and then they would just place what they want to have from the menu into it, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, a few more features that that would be useful for the team leader here would be to understand the portion size, right? So a lot of times there are family packs or bigger
Mm.
portion sizes that exist in the food menu, right? So how do you make sure you're catering to the right number of people and you're making sure you're ordering for the right number of people? So obviously it says they're serving for two or three. So let's say your team group is already consists of 10 people, right? So you have to just make sure, nudge the team leader when you're ordering something, just nudge them that this might not be enough for the team, or maybe it'll be short of the quantity, right? So we could just make sure we can show this knowledge so that they do not under order something, right?
Mhm.
That's something that we could solve for. And yeah, I mean, while placing the order, this is fairly simple, but what we could make easier is, right now what happens is a team leader would order this for themselves, place the order from their own payment method, and then they would get it reimbursed. An easier option would be to put in the company's credit card and then maybe just make a payment, or there are corporate cards that you could just use
Mhm.
to just make the payment. So we could something build around something like that, but it's a slightly higher effort than what I can see right now. So let's just try to now prioritize what do you think is going to be the highest impact here, and then
Mhm.
solve that, right? So I'll just take a moment to just understand what is the highest impact feature and lowest effort feature here, right? And try to prioritize what features to build first and what to deprioritize, right?
Sure. Now, creating the user journey was a very smart move because it gave him very real pain points, right? Of course, like I mentioned in my feedback, it gave him a little to operational pain points, but the pain points felt like he has a lot of empathy. He understands what the admin would go through and what the challenges they would have. So that's why marking the user journey is a great, great thing whenever you're reporting the pain points. When you're solutionizing, though, when you were listening to it, one thing that he could have done better was he could have bucketed the solutions. Since you've already created the user journey, in my mind, the steps are already there. All you need to do is you need to map the solutions you're saying to those steps. If you're able to do that, the interviewer knows how you're going about it, and the chances of you going through the round improve. He's done a good job so far, but let's see how he concludes it at the end with his prioritization and trade offs.
Okay. So, coming to the prioritization of problems, right? So, there were three solutions that we came up with. One was initiating the conversation of just ordering, and then there was understanding everybody's food choices, and the third one was payment. So what I can see here is the most painful problem right now. What we could identify in terms of how painful the problem is going to be the food choice, right? Taking food choices from a large group of people is slightly higher effort versus just or initiating a conversation is not a very high effort task, because not every time a team leader is going to be busy and they would just strike a conversation with the
Mhm.
team. So don't see it as a very painful problem here. And even the payment does not seem to be a very big pain point here, because reimbursements are very smooth in general. So I would want to prioritize I would look at the ROI as well here. So um, I see, because the pain point is very painful, taking the food choices from people, the adoption of the feature will be very quick, because the pain points always being very painful. Size of impact is also going to be big, because it's one of the most largest pain point that we can see in all these buckets. And um, other than that, if you look at the effort it will take to be built, this is a feature that is slightly already built in the Zomato app to create groups. So tech-wise, does not seem to be a very big effort to be developed, and just it has to just be marketed in a way where it is for team lunches and not just a group ordering feature. So does not seem to be a very high effort task. But when it comes to building an algorithm, on what do you prefer the suggesting as food choices, this is something that we might need to work on a little bit, but seems to be a very straightforward logic where you can just take food orders, see what you have liked, and just build a common group around it. So seems to be a technically feasible solution and should not take very high effort. Yeah, I think effort versus impact wise, food building the food choice feature on P naught would be the most highest impact, and makes most sense. Then initiating the conversation is a problem that not doesn't happen very frequently. I mean, sharing it on a group is a very straightforward feature, but does not happen very frequently. But I think I would want to rank it on P2 and then payments on P3, because of the um, because the first step that we have to solve for, and payment comes at the end. So payment is generally a step where the person is already into the journey so much that they've already put in a little bit of more effort to just make the payment anyways. So seems like taking food choices is P naught, P1 is initiating the conversation, and third third one as P naught, P2 is making the payment from the company side. So that's how I would rank it as. So that's how I prioritize it. And coming to so do you think that makes sense, or do you want to me to double down on something that you have a question?
So it makes sense. I think you did a good job. But at the end, when you're prioritizing, maybe walking me through the framework that you're going to use before you bucket it in that framework, so that in my mind, there is a visual representation of how your solutions are being stacked against each other. That will help. I understand that you wanted to use rice and that's what you use to prioritize. But if you would have been a little more visual about how you are placing all of those things, it would have helped. But
Understood.
anyway, good job.
Understood. And do you want me to double down on something that I've already spoken, or do you want me to move forward and talk about the success metrics of this feature,
Uh,
or do you want me to touch something else?
we can probably evaluate a few trade-offs that you would have taken. Maybe if you were to relook at the entire solution that you've done, what could you have done differently? Where are places where you felt that you could have done more? Where are places that you felt that you could have explored a little more in detail?
Understood. Got it. All right. So let's discuss a few trade-offs first, and then come up with the trade-offs here.
Sure. So there's a small mistake that he did. Whenever you talk about solutions, always and always give it a name and a small summary, because interviewers don't have a very long span of attention. So if you haven't given it a name, the interviewer is likely to stop following you. So that's why if he could have given it a name, it would have been better. However, the solution was interesting. He did come up with a few. So overall, he's done a good job so far. Now let's see what he comes up in his conclusion and the trade-offs that he talks about.
All right. So talking about trade-offs here, we came up with three problem statements that we discussed. One was initiating the conversation of doing a team lunch. Other one was taking the food preferences from the members, and the third one was how do you pay, right? Um, Looking at the first problem, the initiating conversation does not seem to be a lot of trade-offs of implementing this. Seems a very straightforward solution here. But when you look at taking the food preferences, right, the feature that we brainstormed of building, which was essentially of they could not broken down into two types. Right? One was Zomato suggesting the team leader what do you want to order for the team, and also the team members choosing what they want to order.
Mm-hmm.
For the when you come down to the first problem here, right, which is uh, the team leader ending up choosing the preference that was
Mm.
given by Zomato. Here, one risk that we have is maybe people were not interested in having this food right now because a lot of times people just try out different restaurants and then they just end up ordering and then maybe they like it, but then at that point of time maybe they're not interested, or maybe the food that comes there is not best friendly, etc., etc.,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that could cause the problem after the order arrives, right? So that's a trade-off that we could have thought of
Okay.
before coming to this solution. And if you had to like just understand what you so the other solution actually solves for the first problem, which is choosing the letting the team members choose what they want to have, right?
Hmm.
So they would just choose the food item that they want, and it'll basically group a cart for the entire team, and the the leader would just end up placing the order for them, right? This solves the first pain point well. If you ask me any trade-offs in this solution, people might end up over ordering a little bit because if you look at most of the restaurants, there is if you look at the restaurant, there's a big spectrum of the kind of portion
Hmm.
sizes they offer, right? Some restaurants might have a portion size for a person that they want for one person, while some restaurants might have portion sizes for like 8 or 10 people together, right? And maybe the restaurant that the team is going to order from might be catering more of maybe 2 to 3 people portions versus one people portions, and so that might end up people might end up over ordering stuff, right? So um, we can just maybe have a number here of how many people will the entire food eventually cater
Mm-hmm.
to, so that the team leader would make sure it's not they will not over ordering stuff and not waste food after that. So that's something that we could solve it. That's a trade-off that we could solve like that. And coming to the payment method, does not seem to be a big pain point here. I mean, it's already solved using food coupons, so they could just claim food coupons and then they could just solve it. Maybe there could be a corporate admin side of Zomato where they could just look at the summaries of how much the team is ordering, or just maybe allow to
Mm-hmm.
order for the team or something like that to make the payment. So that's something that they could do. So these are the three trade-offs that I could think of. Do you want me to like double down on something or maybe touch some other area or something?
No, good job, good job. Really like the way you structured it, and yeah, well done.
Thank you.
Right. So he did a good job, like I said. However, there was one thing that he could have done better. He could have zoomed out a little more. Whenever you give these solutions, always try and bucket them, like I said. The one he gave was a very real solution. It can be implemented by Zomato tomorrow. But to impress an interviewer, you have to attempt for something called as a moonshot solution. Something that is so impressive and so different that the interviewer appreciates your creativity. And to do that, you have to zoom out. Here, since he was very deep into the admin's use case, the thought process was more in real solutions. So, always when you end, try and zoom out a little, try and solve a bigger, holistic problem for Zomato, and that is when you would impress the interviewer even more. I would go with a solid 8 on 10 for this interview. But what do you think? How did it go? Would you have hired him?